Okay, I'm seeing loads on social media, and a lot of people are calling into my office to ask about COVID antibody tests. Do they work? Are they helpful? Do they get me back to work and back out in the public sooner? If I have a positive test, can I quit wearing this damn mask? There's lots of confusion. They're expensive, and the idea of getting one done might be appealing if a positive result means you can go back into the world, go back to work, leave the mask at home. But there's a lot of confusion, a lot of conflicting information. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to review the current knowledge as of the beginning of May 2020 on the coronavirus antibody tests and what we know right now so that you can make a responsible decision for yourself and your family regarding these tests. So, what an antibody test does is rather than looking for the virus or the bacteria, it's not doing like the nose swab where then you look and you see, okay, can we find virus particles? What an antibody test does is it looks for antibodies that your body makes to a specific microbe. Now, if you think back to high school biology class or you did immunology or anything like that in college or beyond, then the way that it works is your body is exposed to microbes all day long, every day. Those microbes, those viruses, those bacteria, those mold, etc., they get broken down, chewed up by your immune cells, and then create your immune cells then create antibodies to those things so that you do not get sick when exposed. Those antibodies circulate around in your blood, they circulate around in your tissue, and protect you by keeping a lookout for foreign intruders. And so the moment that your bloodstream or your skin sees one of these foreign invaders, those antibodies are already ready, they're prepared, they send other immune cells to fight and destroy those invading bacteria, viruses, whatever it is, so that you do not get infected. You don't have an infection, you don't suffer the consequences of that infection. Vaccines work in a similar manner in that your body is presented with the vaccine um, as an injection or a drink. And what happens is your immune cells break down the components of that vaccine. They present it to the immune cells, which then create those antibodies to chickenpox, to measles, to polio, so that your body is prepared should it encounter measles or chickenpox or polio or whatever in the wild. You already have those antibodies to that without having to have gone through the illness. So these tests for coronavirus antibodies are actually looking for antibodies to COVID-19 in your blood, which then might indicate that you have gone through coronavirus infection. Maybe you were sick, maybe you were in the ICU, maybe you were completely asymptomatic, but you have antibodies to COVID-19. Now, before you get excited and think, okay, if I have antibodies to COVID-19, I already had it. Maybe I didn't even have any symptoms. Maybe I didn't even know I was sick or no one in my family was sick, but I've got antibodies to it, so I'm good to go. I want to drop the most important knowledge on you, which is that these antibody tests, as of right now, do not mean that you are necessarily immune to coronavirus 19. And there's a couple reasons that I'm going to get into for that, but I want that to be the knowledge that you leave this video with if you sign off early, is that these tests at current do not predict who is going to be immune or not. They also don't tell you how long you may be immune to a COVID-19, even if you have gone through the infection. Those are things that we just don't know yet. So if we look at these tests, they detect the specific antibodies in the blood to coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2 19, which is what we are seeing, across the world as a pandemic at this moment. So if you're positive for those antibodies, then it makes one believe that you have had coronavirus 19, or asymptomatically had it and now have antibodies to it. In a perfect world, this would mean you're immune for life, because we know lots of infections where if you have antibodies in your blood to measles or to chickenpox, or to other bacteria that we get vaccinated against, then we believe that your immune system will protect you. And we have herd immunity working on our behalf because a large number of people are immune to them, that we don't have to worry about outbreaks of these diseases because there's enough people with circulating antibodies that will keep any little measles outbreak suppressed. It will keep chickenpox at bay. Now, there's always those exceptions in the vaccine hesitant and vaccine refusing populations, but by and large, we know that most of the population is seroconverted, meaning they have created antibodies to those different vaccine preventable diseases. We are hoping that what we see with coronavirus is the same thing, that when you have COVID-19 antibodies, that means that you are immune to COVID-19, which means you had it, you asymptomatically had it, or you got a future vaccine to it and have mounted an immune response. That's the hope. As of right now, we don't know what the positive value of this test means. There's a few reasons that the test might not mean that you're actually immune. For one, you can have false positives. Now, false negative, false positive, sensitivity, specificity, it's tough to keep all those statistics things straight sometimes. False positive means your test was positive, but in reality, you don't actually have those antibodies in your blood. Couple reasons that might be. One is just the false positive rate of the tests. Some of the tests are not super accurate. They've been released on a super escalated timeline, meaning that, 3 months ago, this test didn't even exist. We've created a test, we've got it on a market, we've got it on a huge platform, all those things. That takes time to happen. And so the faster that happens, the less accurate, the less precise those tests are going to be. And so the likelihood of a false positive is raised because the test might not just be perfect enough just to match up with COVID-19 antibodies. It might be collecting other antibodies and registering as positive when really you haven't had COVID-19. You don't have those actual antibodies. So you have a false sense of security because of that positive value when in reality you are still susceptible. False positives could also happen because there are a lot of coronaviruses out there. So not only is there coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19 that we all know, there's the MERS outbreak. There is the SARS outbreak. Those are other coronaviruses. There's also just a lot of regular old cold viruses that are coronaviruses too. A year ago, when we did a nasal swab, which we didn't do that often, but if we did a nasal swab and did a whole respiratory pathogen panel on it, you would sometimes see coronavirus positive. That did not mean that they had COVID-19 before the rest of the world had it. They just had another coronavirus that was positive. So it's possible that you could have antibodies to a different coronavirus that accidentally or inadvertently trigger the COVID-19 antibody panel to be positive, in which case you would think that, okay, I'm immune, I've had coronavirus, when in reality you haven't. Now, you can also have false negatives, meaning that even though you actually have COVID-19 antibodies in your blood, your test was negative, leading you to believe that you're still susceptible to this. Again, this is because the test is not perfectly accurate. It doesn't detect everyone perfectly because these tests are just still in the experimental phase. We're still getting these to market. They're still getting emergency use authorization when they haven't gone through the full FDA approval process. They haven't been tested in large samples. And so there's a false positive rate and there's a false negative rate with all of these tests. Now, the other thing that we have no idea about is if you're positive, meaning you have COVID-19 positive test for antibodies in your blood, what does that mean? Does that mean that you can go out in public? Does that mean that you can work on the COVID ICU floor without a mask, without personal protective equipment? No, definitely not at this case. Can we say that just because you have positive, that means you don't have to continue to be careful? That doesn't mean you can just stop social distancing or start having big parties at your house with all those other people that have positive tests. There are countries around the world that are starting the idea of these passports that say, I have a COVID-19 antibody test that was positive, meaning I can go around the country, go around shopping areas and work and everything like that without any restrictions because I have that antibody test. The CDC, the WHO, all the organizations are saying, whoa, 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 hold the brakes on this, or hold the horses on this, pump the brakes, because we don't know if just because you have positive antibodies means you are going to be immune to COVID-19 going forward. It's just too soon to know. Now, there are not very many cases of reinfection. Some have been reported, but there's concern or controversy or It's not entirely clear if those were just poorly performed second tests or if they actually got COVID-19, recovered, and then got COVID-19 again. But it's not known to happen in a large number of people. So the likelihood is that you have some degree of immunity after you get COVID-19. We just don't know yet. Now, along with that information is the fact that we don't know how, even if you are immune, how long that antibody response is going to stay around. If you need, like with some vaccines, you need a booster. If when a year from now or 2 years from now, a vaccine is released, if you already have had COVID-19, do you need to get the vaccine, or can you just count on your own natural immunity? Those are things we just don't know yet because not enough time has elapsed from when we started getting COVID-19 infections to having this information. That was a lot of information. The bottom line is these antibody tests are expensive. They are not super reliable yet. They should not influence whether or not you stop social distancing, stop wearing a mask. And so at this point, I would recommend that you not waste your time or tie all of your emotional readiness to resume work and resume interacting in the way that we used to based on this test. I think that would be a misstep, and that would be moving things too far forward based on one positive lab value, or being completely resigned to, I can't go out in public at all because my test is negative. I just don't think at this point we have the data or the information that the general public should be going to these places that are offering the tests. Yes, you can sure purchase them. Yes, you can sure get them from people that are wanting to take your money in exchange for the antibody test. But I would really talk with your own personal physician and see if that's the right decision for you. But by and large, the recommendation is leave the current antibody tests in the public health officials' hands to use for public health monitoring. What we can do is if we do a lot of these tests and find that they're positive, then that might mean that we're getting closer to herd immunity, meaning that we can scale back those restrictions. But at the individual person level, these tests are just not reliable enough to make those important decisions. If I take that positive result and I say, well, I can just go about my daily business, that could mean that I could accidentally infect other people or spread it or catch it myself based on that positive test. So what I fear the most is that people will get these tests, they might be correct, but they might have the wrong information, and then they make decisions about social distancing or being exposed to others or exposing others when they put themselves and those other people at risk because they're operating under the false pretense that they're immune. So the final bottom line, I promise. Don't get an antibody test yet unless you talk with your doctor and you and your doctor make the decision that it's right for you. I would not get this for myself yet. I would not get this for my patients yet because the data just doesn't support it. This may change. In 2 months from now, I might be making another video in which I'm saying the exact opposite. But for right now, based on what we know, it is not the time to go buy an antibody test for COVID-19. Save your money, save your peace of mind. Keep up the good work. I have seen such amazing parents, families, kids. It's been really reassuring to me to see the way that our public has responded, and everybody has really buckled down together and said, this is what's right for our community. And I am so proud of what I've seen in my local community, what I've heard from physicians around the country and around the world about how we have come together in this most difficult moment for our country. This is really a defining moment for our country, and I hope that in years we can look back on it and say, wow, everybody really came together. They made smart decisions, not just for their own personal health and personal benefit, but for the community and for the world. So please, please, please keep up the good work. If this video is helpful to you, click the share button, share it so other people can get that valuable information. If you're watching it on YouTube, click the subscribe button so that you don't miss any future episodes, and please keep up the good work.